Hello, this is Backdrop Designer. I wanted to give you a little rundown of the features of this tool. When you open it up, it might look a little bit daunting with all these different sliders, but after a while you get used to where things are and what they do. Now, I've added a whole bunch of images here, and I'm just going to quickly reset all this by clearing the custom files, and that will just give me some base files here. You can use any of the spaces to load in your own images, and I'm just going to do that right now. So I'll use this set 5, and just means that I can keep it kind of organized. And I'm going to choose a photograph that I took while I was on holiday up in Scotland. So this is an area called Sandylands or Salt Coats, and nice area, and it was a really pretty day. So I took this photo with my camera phone. I've got a Hawaii P20 and they're pretty good cameras. So I think it's 45 megapixel camera. So as soon as I load that in, it's loaded in here. I've given it the name, and I want to turn off this force scale because I can't scale it up any bigger than the document's height. So it's going to clamp in itself to that. So I'm just going to turn that off so I can go bigger, and now I can kind of focus in an area that I like. I'm just going to go so that foreground wall isn't in the way, and click that down. So now that that's done, so it's still on the brush, I just want to press B so I don't see it anymore. So I've basically just hidden the brush with the mouse, and what I want to do is I want to sort of be able to sort of update this image that I've plotted down already, and to do that all I do is just click on auto update, and if I start to bring in this slider here, you can see I can start to change these colors. So it's going to replace anything that it finds blue for this blue, and anything that finds red for that, and so on. So I'm just going to bring that in and start to muck around with these tones and get something a bit more vivid. And let's see if I can get something kind of, I'll try and get an old photo. Look, sepia tone seems to be the sort of easiest thing to reproduce here. One of those old postcards. Alright, so something like that. Now I also want to reduce the quality a bit, so I'm going to use the blurriness. I'm just going to drag that up to the right a bit, just to make it a little bit blurry, and kind of reduces the quality there. And that's pretty much that. So let's turn off auto update so that no other brushes get affected. And I can always choose to like swap this in and out. So if I just do auto update and move that left and right, you can see that it goes between the original and whatnot, the new shader colors. Turn that off, and what I want to show you is like me turning this into retro style artwork, so pixel art. And as soon as I move this pixel mode slider here to the right, boom, I get this shader that tries to pick the closest color possible to a Commodore 64 color palette, and I can control that with this dither range here. Now it's good to have a look at this bottom image because it's kind of easier on the eye than all of this. Now if you don't like the CRT effect, you can just click that there and that turns that off and on, and that's just really a post-process effect. If you save your image with that on, it will save it with it on, and if you save it with it off, it will save it with it off. When I mean save it, I mean export the image. Okay, so I can muck around with this dither range and also the dither image. So there's a kind of image in the background that helps to create these patterns, and you don't actually see that, but the easiest thing to do is just to muck around with this dither range and see which one you like. Now this one's quite good because you get multiple tones from it. As you can see, the sort of banding effect there. And this one, the one to the far left, is the kind of the best at that, but it's a little bit noisy. I like it when it's sort of semi-organized, like this scanline effect or the checker effect. And this is just a nice way to see your artwork or your photographs in a kind of different way. And there is some experimental patterns there as well. So I'm just going to go to this one I quite like, and you can play with the range, and maybe even some of the blend modes to give you slightly different ranges as well. And this one's particularly dark, so you can do that. There's also different pixel modes with more resolution and more colors. Okay, so you see if I come out of that color mode, so I'll just do auto update and bring that back to normal. Take away the blurriness, so we'll get the sharpness. In fact, I'll keep it a little bit just to help it be less noisy. And I'm going to bring in this pixel mode. You can see the CRT effect is off until I click on there. And you won't see the CRT effect down here. It's really just the big image, just for effect. And that one's quite nice because of the extra tones. And you can really push that dither range. It will kind of overtake a bit, but it's just enough to edge some of these tones towards each other. It's just an overlaid image with a pattern on it, and it just seems to work quite well. And that one's quite good as well. They all look quite nice, and yeah, you can load in any image. So here's another image that I grabbed from a YouTube video of Scotland, and you know, I really like Scotland. It's very picturesque, and I'm from there, so I'm not being biased or anything, but this, you know, really nice landscape. So this is taken from a 4K video. I just screen grabbed it and just experiment a bit. You can press X to flip horizontally any image as well, and I'm just going to plop that in there and see how that looks. You see it's a little noisy and you lose a lot of tones from this first mode, and it's a big challenge to try and get Commodore 64 art to look great, but it's quite nice in these other pixel modes, and it does give you a kind of idea of how pixel art works, especially with the little checker pattern, which I really like, that kind of mid-tone that it tries to create just by making that checker. You can see it down here how it works so much easier in the eye. You wouldn't really notice it unless you look really close. But yeah, that's really it. And backdrop design is not just for making pixel art like this. You can build up images from smaller images. For example, I have this triangle, and I can put this triangle anywhere, and as you know, you can auto update, change the colors of that, and see how it looks like so. And you can plot loads of these down, you can rotate them, all sorts of cool stuff like that. There's a manual full of information about what does what, flipping and rotating and scaling, and all those things will be covered in there. And you can undo, you can redo, you can even intervene and change history a little bit. So you can go back in time and make some changes, you know, kind of fix things that you did wrong and then still come back. So it's kind of like a interrupted sort of undo system where you can go back and change something, go back and redo back to where you were, and there's little kind of quick buttons for that to get you back to where you were. If you were way back here somewhere and you wanted to see all of your plots, click that button and it brings back them all. Or a little kind of time-lapse mode, and it goes so quickly you don't really see that. But that's kind of some of it. There's a few other things here to do with grids and using pixels. Wrap mode is pretty cool. So if you do have, I'm just going to use Control and Backspace here. If you do have a scene where you want to make the area kind of wrappable horizontally, then you just click on this wrap mode, hold down Shift, and you can kind of draw at the edges loads of triangles. So holding down Shift just is a way of like plotting. It's kind of like an auto fire, if you like. It just auto plots. So if you hold down Shift and you hold down the mouse button, it will draw lots. Now it does use up something called the plot count, and down here it says plots used 372 out of 2048. This is something that it could definitely be improved in a future version of this tool, but this is a very decent working beta, and I hope you enjoy using it. So if I do something like that there, you can see I can get some nice interesting shapes. I can also change the sky to look something more interesting as well, and I can switch that into pixel mode to see how it looks if it was pixel art like that. And I could also, while I'm on layer 10, I can click on this preview button and start to play around with the tones of the actual brush plot. So everything that's in this layer gets affected by the shader, and you see I can go between these different tones and get some nice effects. Wouldn't it be nice to see that in real time on an actual Commodore 64? But this is a bit graphically intense, so I wouldn't try it. I mean, good luck. So I can also add blurriness. You can't really see it so well there until I come out of the pixel mode, and you can see it's like a non-disruptive sort of workflow. You can go between different pixel modes really easily, get different things that you like. But now that I quite like that, and I'm going to muck around with the sky tone a little bit more. Let's do a little bit of bigger dither range. Is it non-destructive? That's a non-destructive workflow. You see how you get these nice extra tones of like green. It's easier in the eye looking at this part, and that's quite an interesting repeatable backdrop if you did want to have a kind of old school looking scroller game, some sort of shoot 'em up. And you can add in like whatever you want in here, some squares and circles. Put them at the edge, it will do the other half for you at the other side, so it's completely tileable, and make some nice sort of weird tree shapes. Now, another cool thing that it's got as a feature is a parallax type effect. So I'm just going to undo all of those circles. There's some things, two things I'm going to show you here is like, so when I undo those circles, it's going to take me to those squares, and I'm going to start pressing delete to literally like take them out of history. And as I redo, I'm only redoing those circles. But what I want to do is go to layer 11. Oops, let's go back to layer 10 and just commit that. So I'm just going to click bake, right, so that I've just committed those colors to everything in that layer. Now I'm going to go to layer 11 and start plotting. Instead of plotting, I'm just going to do Control-Alt-Z to basically redo what I did, but with Control-Alt-Z it's going to redo in the current layer. So I'm actually replotting all of this into layer 11, and that's pretty cool if you need to sort of extract something out of a layer. You just undo to the point where you know you plotted it, go to the layer you want to go to, and do Control-Alt-Z instead of Control-Shift-Z. So now that's all on layer 11. You can see I've got it kind of isolated. And a cool little thing as a feature, I can do this little scroller mode. And actually, these are moving at different rates. I don't know if you can really see it there, but these should be moving at slightly different rates. So let's see, if I do scroll layer only scrolls this one. But an easier way to see this is to cut everything out of layer 11. So I'll just do cut, and I'll move to layer 17 and do paste. And now you can see they move faster. So the more distance between those layers, you know, the greater the difference in speed, I guess. Because layer 0 doesn't move, and layer 23 moves very fast. I'll just show you that right now. So I'll just cut out of layer 17 and paste that into layer 23, and I'll cut out of 10 and I'll put it into layer 1 so we get a little bit of motion. You can see it's just a tiny bit. But it's cool for making like a little feature like, you know, animated clouds, or just getting an idea of how your parallax scrolling might look. And it's all non-destructive. You can go to any mode, back, and do different things. We can go to that layer 23, click on our preview mode, and we can start like changing these colors. Let's go to layer 1. So now that I'm happy with that tone, I actually just have to click bake. Then go to layer 1, preview, and let's change it for these red tones. In fact, let's go for some white ones like that. And I can even take some of these tones away, make them transparent, and get this kind of glassy looking effect. Let's change that to green and bring it in a bit. I don't see that so much. Let's just try a different tone. Something like that, and then just click bake. And I can also change the sky. Yeah, quite an interesting effect, just for fun. Let's go back up to layer 23 and do preview. In fact, I don't want to do preview. I'll just turn that off again. I actually want to get the colors that were in there before. So if I undo, it basically undoes one of those blobs. So I can actually use plot fetching to fetch the colors that were used. Now I'll just redo to get that back. But now I've got everything about these that I wanted. So that plot fetching is handy. You can turn that on and off to sort of fetch the previous plot's color detail and any of the settings. I'm going to turn that off again, and I want to actually use this to change the I forget what it was, but I was wanting to change something. So if I go to layer 23, yeah, that was it. So I click on preview, and because I've got most of the settings there, all I want to do is bring some blurriness in, And you can see it kind of adds a little bit of blur. It doesn't work too well with these shapes because it seems to make a kind of black edge to it. That's just the way that I've designed them. But you can do that. It's also cut out amount, and I can play with these values and sort of cut some away and do some weird little shapes. So it's quite an interesting tool for something really abstract and a bit different from what you might be used to with Photoshop and things like that. But what it's good for is making scrollable backgrounds, and that's kind of the name comes from, Backdrop Designer. Okay, so that's it for this video. I hope you enjoy using this. It's on itch, it's super cheap, price of a coffee, less than a beer, and your support will help me keep making extra features. Definitely want to rework a few things to take away limitations over time, but I'm working on a lot of projects right now and I hope to get around to it soon. But I hope you enjoy making cool stuff with this, and I love to see what you make. Thanks for watching. Bye.